Hi everyone, welcome back. This is part 2 of our dollar store makeover. We're turning this little wooden dollar store trunk into a steamer trunk. So you're watching part 2. In part 1 we made this special dome top lid, and in this video I'm going to show you how to add this insert into the lid. So you should have already watched part 1, and if you've missed that part, the link is popping up on your screen. You can head over there, see how I put this little dome top together, then come back here and we'll work on the insert together. And to make everything in this insert, I used cereal box. And whatever material that you lined your trunk with, you'll be using the same to line your insert with. I use scrapbook paper. You'll need a piece of fabric for the hinge, 1 coffee stir stick, binder clips come in handy, a pair of scissors of course, and tacky glue. Alright guys, let's get started. So now we're going to make this part here, and we start off by making this dividing wall right here. And to get it to fit just right, if you look here, it's got to fit underneath this lip here on both sides. And to do that, we got to do some trimming. And we'll be checking and trimming, checking and trimming. But first of all, I start off with a piece that fits right inside and goes right into that curve. So I just cut a piece off camera and just kept trimming this part until it fit perfectly right there. And now I'm going to look in here. I'm just going to mark off where that part ends, the side here, and right here. So my actual piece needs to be as wide as this lid from outside to outside. So I got another cereal box, and I got one side that's actually a straight line. So I'm just going to lay it there. And then my other line is going to go here. So I know how wide. Here, I'm just going to put this down. So I need to cut a line here and here. So now this one I know is the right width right here and right here. So when I push it in there, I want this width down here to fit in here. And I'm just going to lay this over top, right in the middle. And I'm just going to go like this. So there's the beginning. And I need to cut out a notch from this mark to this mark. And I'm going to be trimming this a number of times before it's ready to go in. So now I can trim this down. I got the shape that I need for the inside, but now I can trim it down so it fits. And that's quite a bit too big, so I'm going to keep trimming. So I'm almost there. I have to keep trimming now. Get it down to size. It was better to have the piece too big than too small. I want it to fit perfectly in that space. So I'm just going to keep trimming as I need to. So finally, I got a perfect fit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this as a template. I'm going to cut 2 more pieces, the exact same size, and I'm going to glue them all together. And that'll give me the thickness that I want. So I'll go ahead and I'll trace this all out and cut 2 more pieces. So I cut 2 more pieces and I glued them together. And now that glue is dry, I'm going to try it in here and see how it fits. And it fits perfectly. No gaps in my wall, no holes there to deal with, and nothing is bulging out, so that means it fits in there perfectly. So now I can trim across the top. I'm going to make sure that I have a straight line going across. I'm just going to use my ruler. So now we need to cover this the same as we used in here, or we could paint it. It would be super easy to paint it, then you don't have to worry about cutting out paper or gluing paper on there. I've decided to go with the paper I have in there. I've already done one side, and I would suggest doing one side at a time. Glue it on, let the glue dry, and then carefully trim around the edges and just make sure that it's still fitting when you're done. Like some of this I had to push in with my thumbnail just to get it to sit right on the sides there. And do one side at a time, And then if you have a pattern, make sure when you do glue, because I'm gluing on a big piece, I'm going to trim it out after the glue is dry. So when you put it on, make sure that your pattern is still going to be sitting nice when it's all dry. So I made sure that I had a square edge here to work with. Now I can glue this. When you put your wall in there, make sure it is flush with this. So what I did was I stuck it in and I just laid this over top, and I saw that mine wasn't totally flush, so I took it off and just trimmed it down. So if this sits nice and flat across, then you're good to go. Alright guys, I am popping in to give you the heads up. I glued this in place before I made this piece here, and I'd done the same thing with this one here, because this trunk here is the very first one I made with this sort of insert. I've never done one of these before, so I kind of just winged my way along there, and so when I wanted to show you how to do it, I did the exact same steps. But now that I'm thinking about it, this piece, I want this to be as snug as possible between this wall and this wall without it being stuck. Like, I want it to shut and everything and open, but I want no gaps between these walls. So it would definitely be easier to attach this piece and then glue this wall in. So I just want to give you that heads up, but I'm going to leave the clips of it as they are because I only had one shot at showing you. I'm not making another trunk like this, not for a long time. So I only have this one shot, so I'm going to leave it alone. You watch what I'm doing, and then when you make your own, just remember that this wall can be glued in after this piece is in place. Now we're ready to glue it in, and I would suggest using a tacky glue. I am sadly out of it right now, so I have to use this instead. It will still work, but a tacky glue is much stronger and better. So I'm just going to push this in here, and the distance that you put between this side and the wall is totally up to you. You can look at pictures online. Usually this part here sits in a little bit. You don't put it right in the middle, but you can if you want to. It just depends on where you want it. So now we just have to glue it in. I'm going to use a paintbrush in my glue, and again, tacky glue would have been better. I just glue all around the sides, just load the glue in there, and it'll dry clear, so no worries there. All along all the edges on both sides. And for this piece here, I just cut a thin strip that fits over top. It's a little bit wider because I'm going to mold the sides in after I get the glue. I'm going to put the glue on there all along the top. I'm loading up the glue. There's a lot on there. And now I'll lay my piece over top, and then I'll just paint the glue all the way around just to make sure I got glue all over all the edges. Now I'm pushing down on each side of the paper, down with my finger and my thumb, just running it through. Once this is relatively dry, we can work on this part here. And so I just want this piece to fit right in there, just snug. Once I have that trimmed down, then I'm going to glue it to another piece. And you want full glue contact from edge to edge for sure. There. I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to let that dry completely before I do anything else with it. And popping in with another edit. Now that these two pieces are dry, we're going to decorate both sides. So we'll be putting a piece here. Once that's dry, we'll cut it out. And then on this back side, we're going to be putting fabric and then another decorative piece. And in between all of that, we're going to be adding a little tab. I explain it in the next clip, but it wasn't so clear, so I just wanted to make sure that I've explained myself before we carry on. So again, I'm going to glue this down and making sure that my pattern, if I have one, is all straight and everything looks good. I'm going to leave it a little bit too big, and then I could just trim it down after it's all dry. So I took a piece of fabric, this is muslin, and I cut it to size, of course, so it fits all the way, and then I cut a little bit extra here. And that little bit of extra is going to be glued to this here, and then I'm going to shove it under that little lip there. So we need to glue this on. And that's being glued on the non-decorative side. Almost forgot. I have to add a little tab here and another decorative piece to the back side. So let's do that. I've already put my decorative piece on, and then I remembered I had to add my little tab. So my little tab is just a piece of the same fabric, and I cut a thin strip. I'm going to double it over, put a bunch of glue in there, and I'm just going to stick it in between. And then push really hard just to make sure it gets sandwiched in there really good. Okay, I'm going to add some glue all along the edges here, and I'm just going to rub it in just to ensure that I have full contact on all the edges. I don't want that paper lifting up at all. Now I can set this aside. I'm going to let it fully dry before I mess around with it, because I'm going to be attaching this to the trunk, but I want this all to be completely dry before I do that. You can help it along with your hair dryer or just leave it for about a half an hour. I need to make a little stop, and it's a piece of coffee stir stick that I glued in place. You can see it's glued almost to the top there, just enough to stop it. I already cut mine to size, coffee stir stick. I'm going to glue it in here. I'm going to use my binder clip here to hold it in place. And I feel really bad, I've run out of tacky glue. I hate this glue here for gluing wood pieces and stuff. But that's okay. I'll use my binder clip and then it'll stay put. Okay, while this is still wet and can be moved around, take your lid part here and just place it on top of that piece of wood and just see where it stops. And I can see it stops right there. So I want that there. Okay, I'm going to take my little binder clip here. I'm going to leave that for about 20 minutes. So I'm about to attach the lid now. If you wanted to add a picture, then you could do that as well. This is a Google image that I've resized. And I'm not going to do it to this one. If I want to add one, I'll do it later, because I just glue it on top. Anyway, we're going to glue this fabric piece down to the trunk now. Alright, I'm having a little bit of trouble because of the glue I'm using. Again, I've run out of tacky glue. Tacky glue is so much better than this. This keeps slipping. Or if you had fabric glue, that would work too, I think. But I used tacky glue when I attached my first one, and it went in like a dream. This one has given me a little bit of trouble. Okay, so I put glue on that side here, and I'm going to lay it over and push it down. Ah. It's going to give me troubles, guys. That's okay. Yeah, I'm just going to pull it up a little bit so it slides into place. And if I can close it and it's straight up and down, then it's in the right spot. It's not yet, so I'm going to slide it a little bit more. So you want to make sure that it can fold all the way down. And close it, open it, and if it goes all the way down, then I'll leave it there. And let's hope that works. I didn't have that much trouble when I used the tacky glue. So now I want to stick in the little stopper here, and that goes in pretty snug from wall to wall. So I've already pre-cut my piece, and when I stick it in there, it slides in, but you can feel it touches both sides of the wall. So I want to get as much tacky glue as I can out of this empty bottle. Oh, look at that! Happy days. And I'm going to put it right underneath. There should be a little bit of a wrinkle here in the fabric from you pulling it down and then lifting it up and pulling it down. There should be a little bit of a wrinkle. You want this right underneath that wrinkle. Okay, and now push it all in. Make sure everything's flush. Open it back up, and I'm going to get glue into the sides here, just like I did for this wall. So I need a little paintbrush. So I'm using my tacky glue. And now we just want to leave it dry completely before we mess around with it. And now that I have some tacky glue, I'm going to paint some tacky glue right over that fabric here. That school glue was horrible. That kept slipping and wouldn't grab. There we go. Painted it all over in the sides. Now I'm going to set that aside and leave it dry completely. So finally we got it to work. It's a little bit stiff, and that's because of the amount of glue I had to keep using in there. But it's okay, it'll work. I just keep opening and closing to loosen it up. My first one that I made is so much smoother, and that's because that fabric, it only took one try, and I stuck it in there and it was glued in. And I didn't have to add so much glue. And also, I didn't add glue right underneath this line of the cardboard, of this lid here. There was no glue right underneath that line, so it's glue free, and that hinge is just a little bit more smooth. But it's okay, it'll work. I'm happy with that. I finally got it to work with that cheap glue. Anyway guys, we can carry on to part 3 now. In part 3 we're going to do a lot of the other parts, the tin, the hardware, leather handles. So click that link that's popping up on your screen and I'll meet you over there.